Welcome back to the Matter of Facts podcast on the Prepper Broadcasting Network. We talk prepping, guns, and politics every week on iTunes, Stitcher, and Spotify. Go check out our content at mwfpodcast.com on Facebook or Instagram. You can support us via Patreon or by checking out our affiliate partners. I'm your host, Phil Rabalais. Andrew and Nick are on the other side of the mic, and here's your show. Welcome back to Matter of Facts podcast. I'm Phil, that's Nick, and I have two questions I have to ask before we get to the admin work.
Okay.
First of all, did you buy your dog the bulletproof vest I recommended?
No.
And have you had a conversation recently with your local FBI handler about the fact that everything we say tonight is joking?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I had a conversation with a sheriff's deputy.
Is that sheriff's deputy cool?
I mean, he's my uncle's best friend from high school.
Oh, not to hell with it. You're related to the whole freaking county. What
I'm
am I
not related
about?
to this sheriff's deputy. His family moved in.
Oh, so this is the one person within like a 150-mile radius that you are not related to. Thank you, Nick.
He definitely married my fourth cousin, but on the other side of the family.
Goddamn German farming families, man.
Dude, I'm telling you, man. There were 3 things to do at that point. And only one of them was farming.
Was the other one drinking or fighting?
Fighting and creating more German farmers, apparently. Just, God, there's too many of the damn things. We even ended up shipping a few of them off to Chicago to you can't call it renting them out, but they basically rented them out to rich families in Chicago that didn't have kids to be their maids.
Oof.
Yeah.
I mean, there are worse ways to make a living.
Actually, Jeff, all of my armor is hard plates. I don't have any Kevlar.
Yeah, same.
I should probably get some of that, just because why not? But
my whole issue with getting soft armor is just that there's the Venn diagram of Phil, where on this side you have like the situations that I would normally wear some kind of armor. And then this side is like the moments where you need level 3 plus.
Yeah.
And those two things like overlap all like 99%. So like there's this tiny little sliver where I would like to have armor, but I don't think I need rifle rated plates. You know what I'm saying?
I tend to not go places where I think I have a good chance of soft armor being important.
This is exactly what I argued with someone about concealed carrying years ago. I was like, because they told me like, well, I'm only going to carry if I think I need it. And I'm like, if I think I'm going to need a gun, I'm just not going to go there.
Right. I mean, like, look, bad situations happen to people all the time at random. But
yep,
having worn armor for full days, sometimes full weekends for Milsim events, it sucks. It's not enjoyable.
I mean,
and
myself
having talked to officers that wear Kevlar all the time, it still sucks.
Well, I can tell you that for those of us who wore it in combat zones, in the heat, all day, every day, wearing hard armor sucks. And I have it on good authority from friends of mine in law enforcement that soft armor isn't a lot better. Like, it still sucks very badly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, Rachel, tonight is the night that me and Nick are going to get liquored up and complain about the government, which usually means we find our way onto another government watch list, although I think we found them all already. So we'll see.
It's not so much the government. It's government in general. And its horrible inevitability.
Yes. And why various forms of government are just destined to fail eventually.
Yeah.
Including ours. But you know.
Yeah.
There was one thing we need to get before we get any further off the beaten path.
Admin work?
Admin work. Got to do the admin work. If you're not a patron already, you should consider becoming a patron. And I have a person in the chat who's screaming and yelling about wanting to become a patron without going through the authorized process. I have an alternative I'm going to offer you, and then maybe he'll be happy with that. Maybe he won't. We'll see.
Perhaps.
But the link's in the show description. You too can encourage bad behavior and bad decisions. You can also buy merch for the vibes from the Southern Gals. That also encourages bad decisions, and it becomes a conversation piece depending on what shirt you wear in what mixed company.
My wife wearing that shirt to work has definitely sold a few of those extra shirts without any context.
I will say that I wore the Choose Your Post-Apocalyptic Warlord shirt.
Yeah.
I got lots of really strange looks. No one asked, but I got lots of strange looks.
Those are my favorite kind of looks. You know they read the shirt.
Yeah, it's kind of a thing. And last but not least, prevent war crimes with Disaster Coffee. Code MOF at checkout will save you 5%. This is not Disaster Coffee tonight, though, because Disaster Coffee does not sell whiskey.
Yet.
Yeah.
They sell a whiskey-flavored coffee.
Yes.
Whiskey barrel coffee?
Uprising, the bourbon barrel aged coffee. That is something special. It used to cost substantially more than the rest of the lineup because of the cost involved. And over the years, because I do the costing for the business, like everything else has been escalating in price, like, you know, because the WEF and the Davos crew can't stop screwing the rest of the world. But that's another episode. And oddly enough, that one coffee has not escalated in price at the same rate everything else has. So now the cost differential between Uprising and everything else is much smaller than it used to be.
Yeah. It's a good cup of coffee.
It is a really good cup of coffee. It's a solid. It's a solid medium roast. It's not really smoky or bitter or anything. It's got a bit more body than like a breakfast roast, but it's good stuff. I like it.
Yeah, I enjoyed it.
Let's see here. Kyle saying don't make the Trump list, but I'm fairly certain I'm on every list there already is. But if not, we'll find out.
Yeah, I don't think he cares that much about individual people.
I agree with Jeff. I'm nowhere near important enough to make that kind of list.
Unfortunately, we do have dirt on the Clintons.
Thanks, Nick. I didn't want to live to see old age anyway.
That's all right. Being elderly looks aggressively hard.
Yeah, I will say that my dad tells me on a regular basis that getting old is not for the weak.
I would agree with that. The weak tend to die before they get there.
I will also say that, you know, the old adage of beware the old man in a profession where men die young.
Raggle found one. Raggle found a list we wouldn't get on.
Epstein's. That's, I mean, that's fair. I like my women old enough to vote.
Yeah.
Technically, I like my women that I'm married to, and that's it. But, you know, because if I make an offhand comment about I like my women old enough to vote, and then I'm going to have to answer the question as soon as I get off, like, what women, Phil? Woman, just one woman. Speaking of which, happy Mother's Day to everybody, all the mamas that are out there. Current, expecting. Happy Mother's Day to all y'all.
We all appreciate existing, because without existing, we couldn't have what is probably too much gin for an internet podcast.
Yeah. And, you know, I just have to take a moment and like point something out. This is, by the way, directed to young men out there who are thinking about one day marrying. Because this is I had gotten in this conversation with my daughter really recently. We were having a conversation about like third wave feminism and where she and I both feel like that movement's kind of gone off the rails a little bit. And I pointed out to her, I'm like, you know, here's me in a nutshell. I think men and women are very different creatures of equal worth and importance. They do very different things naturally by the averages. I mean, sure, there's one man out there substantially physically weaker than a very strong woman and so on and so forth. But like on the averages, we are built very differently. We are wired differently, psychologically, sociologically, we're very different. And that's fine. But the one thing I pointed out is I'm like, in my opinion, like the person you marry is the most important decision you make in life.
Yes.
Because that person is going to be a couple of things for you boys. That is, if you have children, that is going to be the person who impresses their morals, their intelligence, their ideas, their thought structure onto your children. So if you want to have idiot children who can't think critically and can't emotionally regulate, you marry yourself a lady that can't do any of those things. And that's what you're going to wind up with, because she's going to teach your kids in their first formative years.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, look, there are two people that really get to affect your children's abilities and temperament. It's you and whoever you have the kids with.
Mm-hmm.
So You're giving half of your kid's potential future into the hands of that person.
Yeah.
Be diligent.
Be diligent and be very picky and choosy. But the other thing is that even for the men out there that are marrying that don't tend to have kids, and Nick, like, you can tell me if I'm wrong here, but my way of looking at it is like the lady you marry is going to have a very direct impact on the trajectory of your life.
Oh my gosh, yes.
Like your ability to
Absolutely, yes.
your ability to accomplish your goals that you had set before you two met, your ability to have happiness and peace in your home. There's so many things contingent upon the lady you choose to spend your life with. So my advice to young men is always be super, super picky and marry what's between her ears, not what's below her chin.
Well, I have said this to friends of mine a number of times, and I'll say it here that look, what's the best way to phrase this? Marriage can either be the single greatest or most terrible thing to ever happen to you in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen people have both sides of that coin. For me, single best decision I've ever made. Bar none, the best decision I've ever made. Man, I've seen how it's going for some of my buddies, and my God, did they fuck that one up.
Yeah.
Not all of them, but a couple of them I can think of. They really screwed that one up. And not so much just the person, like, not that they're a bad person that they married, but they're just not a compatible person.
Yeah. Sometimes part of not being compatible means not being mature and, willing to compromise
Absolutely.
or a variety of things. But anyway.
Yeah, if you have people at totally different stages in life, I mean, I can look back even at when I was like 23, 24, 25. I was an idiot. I was. Definitely. I'm sure I will say the same thing about now, about myself now in 10 years, but no, Ragnar, we're good. All the guns are either on my hip or in that safe over there.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Her gun is also in that safe over there.
Bold of you to assume, Fraggle, that she doesn't need a gun to be threatening.
That's true. There are many power tools in this house that she is very proficient with.
Oh, I was just thinking the look.
Well, there is that. And there's the promise of consequences later.
The consequences will always be a thing. But yeah, yep. I just wanted to take a minute, point it out. By the time this comes out, like, Mother's Day will be literally right around the corner. So happy Mother's Day to all the ladies.
Yep.
Now, Nick has a question for the listeners.
I do. I need crowdsourced knowledge. All right. Some of you, especially the people in the Signal chat, know I talked myself into redoing our master bedroom. And what does every master bedroom need?
Night vision.
Yes. Also, a built-in safe for your home defense long gun. Now, I know there are a few out there. I have zero experience with these. I want something that I can, while I am building the master bedroom closet, I want to build that bitch into the wall, lag it into the joists, the ceiling, the wall, whatever I can get access to, I'm running lag bolts into. It's going to be in a closet, so it doesn't need to be concealed, but it definitely needs to be lockable, relatively quick access, and at the very least, drunk friend proof. I trust myself to not go dicking around with firearms when I'm drinking. I don't trust everybody else. So it'd be nice to be able to put my long gun in that safe when we're having company over. If anybody's got any ideas, send them out.
And then, I don't know if you want to discuss it on the air, but I gave you a completely different idea that would be
You did.
Cool.
We can talk about that.
Well within your capabilities to build, because hell, I can build it.
So, Phil Phil brought up the idea of doing a hide-a-gun in your bed. So replace the box spring with sort of a cabinetry system almost, but have it lift on either air or hydraulic assist, tip up, and have the sheet goods on that be made of hard Kevlar armor panels. So put some rifle-rated panels underneath your mattress and down the side of your bed. So now your bedroom is a pillbox. Not a bad idea. Horribly expensive, I would imagine.
I wouldn't think so. I mean,
What do those armor panels cost? I have no idea. I mean, I've looked at them, but I've never
Oh,
priced them
you mean
out.
you would actually buy like armor panels instead of doing it the redneck way?
Well, I mean, I could just source some AR 500 plate, but I thought, hey, they make 1 inch thick, like Kevlar hard panels that function like plywood. I'd probably use that, it'd be lighter.
Um, I was thinking like old phone books and
Oh,
leftover tiles.
no, if I'm going to build an armored pillbox out of my bed, I'm going to use probably certified armor.
What would a sheet of just 1/4 inch plate steel weigh?
A lot. 4x4 sheet. Well, so let's see.
Well, let's
Queen size beds
let's
like
back up.
70.
Do you even need 1/4 inch? Because it's going to be ostensibly on like a 45-degree angle, which means it's going to tend to glance the rounds up.
5.56 will occasionally penetrate a 1/4 inch sheet of plate stock
At a 45 at an angle? Okay.
Yeah. When back in the day, I built a target out of mild steel at my parents' house. I know, mild steel target, bad. Essentially, it was a bullet catch box, and it was set at a 45-degree angle, 1/2 inch plate stock. If you shoot at that within 50 yards, it will dimple the back of that plate with a 5.56. Now, granted, that's out of a 20-inch barrel AR, shooting 55 grain FMJs and maybe some of the steel core ones. I know for a fact a 30-06 FMJ will zip right through that because I had one do it and I had to discontinue use of that bullet stop because of it.
A lot of gangbangers breaking into homes with 30-06 AP, huh?
No, but 5.56 is not necessarily uncommon, especially with what's going on in Chicago right now. I mean, look at the videos we see coming out of the Chicago high schools where guys are flashing AR pistols in their backpack.
That are highly illegal, but who am I?
Wildly illegal, not just like wildly illegal to bring into a school, wildly illegal in the state in general.
Yes. Anyway, I mean, that's just kind of my thought process. It's like
it's an interesting idea.
You ought to be able to build something to accomplish those needs, although it might be overkill unless you were wanting to move a substantial portion of your firearms collection into it.
I'm looking for 1 to 2 long guns.
Yeah.
And say some extra ammunition. That's what I'm looking for.
Well,
a place to put my pistol to if like we're going out to the distillery or something, I can tuck my pistol in there, and then when I get home
But there is nothing to say you have to fill the entire box spring with firearms. You could literally carve out a chunk. I know.
But that's where my heart goes.
I know. But see, now we're into mission creep territory.
Yes.
I'm just thinking like, that is an option, and then having the hide of bed like pop up and having something to help arrest bullets flying through the air would give you a substantial entrenched position in your bedroom.
Given the structure of our house currently, and given the way I have hardened the front, what will be the only door when this is done, given the crimes that we tend to see in our area, I don't think I will need a hardened, entrenched position to then fight from. I don't think so.
This is fair.
Most likely, with the most common crimes that occur in my area, as far as like B&Es when you're home, say home invasion, typically it's home invasion for robbery, and they don't tend to be armed. If they are armed, it is typically a handgun or a knife. So, it comes back to doing your area study and just knowing about, for stuff like this, the crimes that happen in your area. Smash and grab burglaries are one of the most common things we're going to see.
Yeah. I don't know. It was a thought.
It's a good thought. I mean, it's an interesting hypothetical because you could pretty easily end up with a level 4 bed frame very easily. It would be expensive, I imagine.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, I will do some digging around there. In my head, I remember there was this company and they sold some that would be just about perfect for you. It wasn't, it was designed to like stand up in a closet, not necessarily like sink into a wall. But you're smart enough to be able to figure that part out.
We could sink that bitch into the wall. It wouldn't be a problem. I mean, even if it's built, even if it's meant to like go in between a couple like series of cabinets, perfect.
Yeah. By memory, I think this thing was meant to fit between 2 standard studs.
Oh, well, that would be ideal.
But if not, I mean, not rocket surgery to make that work for you.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so the point of the episode today. What's one more government watch list? So last episode, Nick and I got to debating about governments.
A little bit.
I think government is... Nick disagrees that government is an industry in and of itself, and I argue that once it reaches a certain point, it starts to act like an industry. It's just not an industry that produces anything that people want.
So I, and maybe this is a definitional disagreement at its root. I don't think you can consider something an industry unless it has a tangible product that it's creating, whether that's movies, microwaves, washing machines, firearms.
And admittedly, I'm taking the definition of industrial very, very liberally.
Sure.
I'm referring more to in terms of like scale and scope and size.
Absolutely. Like, well, in that case, you're not wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, what this country was originally set up to be was supposed to be like a very loose association of states where the majority of power was held by the people and then by the local governments and then by the state governments. The end result was always supposed to be maximizing freedom for the people and minimizing government intrusion. You know, I can't remember which one of our founding fathers, but they famously said that like the intention was for the average person to live their entire life never having had an encounter with federal government, which sounds freaking hilarious to everybody these days, especially when we're not that far past tax season. But that was the original idea, was like, if we just leave people alone and we have like some basic rules, like don't take each other's stuff, don't try to molest people that don't like to be molested, don't try to take people's lives, just be cool, then everybody can pretty much manage their own affairs. Like everybody can decide for themselves whether they want to have guns or they want to live in a big house or they want to live in the middle of nowhere. Like people can decide all that. We don't have to do all that for them.
Yeah. You know, while it does start that way, Phil, you brought up a term, mission creep, earlier.
Scope creep, mission creep. Yeah.
Scope creep, mission creep, whatever you want to call it. The trouble is that once you have people doing a job, they're going to be self-interested, as the nature of all of us are, self-interested creatures, in making sure that they have a job next week, next month, next year, 10 years from now, ideally till retirement. Now, you and I, well, maybe you can. I cannot guarantee that the company I work at is going to continue to exist or continue to need my employment much beyond the end of the week. Really. I mean, it could come down the pipeline. All of our jobs are canceled. Hey, go home. You're done. Government is where you can, though. You can create a system of bureaucracy in that government and in some large corporations, which start to function more like a government, in my opinion.
I was going to say, like, let's give the devil their due, but any corporation beyond a certain scope becomes very bureaucratic very quickly.
It does. I think that's why large megacorps are so common in sci-fi fiction, because you can essentially write them as a government,
Wayland Yutani,
and make them as evil as possible. Yeah,
everything that survived into Blade Runner, even though all those companies ended up going under, oddly enough.
Thank God. They were not ideal candidates anyway.
But no, I mean that is right on the nose. Like you're in this weird situation where like large corporations become very bureaucratic. And groups of people and bosses become more concerned with how to insulate their job from layoffs than how to like they become more concerned with my little piece of the pie than they are with like the total health, the total alignment of the organization in the market. Yes, Jeff Jag, all restaurants are Taco Bell.
All restaurants are Taco Bell.
And wasn't it also that way in Idiocracy? Was it Taco Bell?
No, it was like Sam's Club. No, Costco. It was Costco. Welcome to Costco. I love you.
Oh, a slight sidebar, but do you know the story behind Crocs and Idiocracy?
Yes.
So
they wanted to find the stupidest shoe that nobody would ever wear.
And then as a result of Idiocracy, they became ubiquitous.
Look, my guy. Well done. Excellent marketing campaign, I gotta say.
You have failed successfully.
Task failed successfully.
So for the listeners that don't know, like when they were getting ready to make Idiocracy, and if you haven't seen Idiocracy, you need to go watch it and then come back and talk to me about it, because that is my litmus test for whether or not we can be friends.
Yeah.
But they were literally like trying to find like the footwear that, because that's the whole idea behind Idiocracy, is that there's only a couple of things that are, around anymore, because the one company bought up all the other ones. So like everybody wears Crocs.
Yep.
But they were thinking to themselves, like, we have to find this shoe that's like so stupid, nobody will ever wear it, and that's what everybody's going to wear in this movie. Well, lo and behold, everyone started wearing them after Idiocracy. They exploded in popularity.
Look, man, I get why they did, and I understand why a lot of outdoorsy guys keep them around for camp shoes. I get it. You really can't ruin them by getting them wet, getting them muddy, getting them dirty. I get it. They're a good camp shoe. They're lightweight. They're packable.
But
they suck.
I'm going to tell you right now, I owned a pair in the past. I haven't worn them in Christ knows how many years. I will never own another pair. They're the goofiest nonsense on earth. No, Stuart, we are not starting over. Not. The whole reason for doing this show on YouTube and on Rumble and on Facebook and having it on our audio feed on all the podcast platforms, and the reason for it being on the Prepper Broadcasting Network, thanks for that little plug opportunity, is so that when you are 27 minutes and 15 seconds late, you can still catch the whole show.
It is a benefit.
See, this is why I know me and Rad can be friends, because he said this is one of the few movies in existence that is physically painful for him to watch. But here's the problem. If you come away from Idiocracy and think to yourself it was a stupid movie or it was entertaining, we're not going to be friends. If you come away terrified because it is literally happening in front of your eyes, you and I should hang out together, because you understand where I'm at.
I would argue you can be both amused and terrified by it. I mean, President Camacho was a hilarious take.
Okay.
On what is now a reality TV presidency.
Did you not see the meme that I made and posted right after Trump won?
I did.
It was a picture of President Camacho and Donald Trump, and I was like,
the only difference is the pecs.
Well, and the saw.
Okay, but how hard would it be for the commander-in-chief to get a saw?
To one arm fired into the ceiling? I'd be impressed.
I mean, they're not that heavy. They're heavy, but they're not that heavy.
Bruh, have you ever heard of cyclic rate?
Yeah. I didn't say he'd do it well.
Have you ever one-armed?
Just that he could definitely rip some rounds up into the ceiling.
Have you ever one-armed a saw?
No, but I did one arm in RPK.
I was about to say I have two-armed saw, and it's a fair bit spicier than you would think a 5.56 would be.
Probably
very high cyclic
rate. I mean, the RPK wasn't a problem for me to freehand standing one arm.
Anyway, what were we talking about before Crocs and Stewart got us totally off subject?
I don't.
Oh, we were talking about how governments and large corporations both become bureaucratic at a certain point. So here's where I think our current system of government started going off the rails. Two things. Well, three things. And by the way, one of these things is not unique to republics. This is kind of like a flaw of all governments, in my opinion. So number one is that eventually they get big enough and they have enough power mass that they attract the kind of asshole who likes having power over other people. And that's not and I don't know if you call that a feature or a flaw, but it is not unique to republics. That is republics, that is democracies, direct democracies, that is dictatorships, communist, socialists, fascists, that is every government on earth. If they get big enough, they start attracting the kind of person to them that likes to have power over others.
It's a feature of hierarchies in general.
Yes. Now, that's one. Two is once our republic became large enough to become bureaucratic, then it became filled with people whose primary concern was how do I keep my job? Not how do I keep the country on the rails? How do I keep the wheels on the bus? How do I have like do I not have a fiduciary responsibility to the taxpayer to efficiently use their dollars in the pursuit of my assigned duties? You get to a situation where people are more concerned about how do I get my agency a bigger budget next year? How do I get my department a bigger budget next year? The goal eventually, if you have unscrupulous people, and bureaucracies tend to attract unscrupulous people, in my opinion.
They tend to reward them too.
Yes.
Which is the kind of the one of the worst parts.
But you get to a point very quickly where like people's primary concern is how does this benefit me? Not from a standpoint of like self-service or selflessness, like how can I serve my fellow man? How can I serve my fellow citizen? But how do I serve myself? And again, that is not a unique criticism of our government or for republics in general. That you're going to hear that retold a couple of times. And the third,
very much a part of hierarchies in general.
Mm-hmm. And here's the third, and you're going to hear this quite a few times too. Have you heard Thomas Jefferson, the Thomas Jefferson quote, and TJ is my boy, that the death of the republic occurs when people realize they can vote themselves largesse from the treasury?
Yep.
The minute people realize I can vote for a person, and that person will give me free stuff funded by taxes taken at gunpoint from other people, that is the beginning of the death of the republic. Well, I don't know how many of y'all have a history book handy, but that shit happened, what, a century ago?
Well, let's see. When was the New Deal? Mid-1930s? Yeah.
Yeah.
We're coming up on 100 years.
So as long as I pull the lever
90 years.
And by the way, this is not a criticism of the Democratic Party, even though they tend to be huge fans of the welfare system, because the Republicans are just as fucking guilty of yanking the friggin' lever for the corporate welfare system.
That they are.
Don't believe me? Go and look. Call me on my BS if you think I'm wrong.
All right, Raggle. How do we explain the level of incompetence?
Easily.
Very easily. Most people are incompetent, number one, at least in some manner of their existence. No one's going to be a perfect expert in everything. Mm-hmm. And number two, getting elected to high office in government largely comes down to two things. One, being not offensive to a plurality of people.
A plurality of your voters.
No. A plurality in general. Because if you get enough of the people offended that are not your voters, they're going to make more of a stink and cause less people to vote for you. Joe Biden is the kind of milquetoast, waffly fence sitter that most people could ignore, at least when he got elected to president. Back in the day when he was elected to what was it, Congress, the House, or was it the Senate? I can't remember. Senate. I wasn't alive during a lot of that.
Fucking hell.
When he got elected to the Senate, he was very bigoted against African Americans, which was okay for a lot of people back then.
How bigoted was he, Nick?
He called them super predators on CBS and on C-SPAN and on the floor of the Senate House.
And the black community rallied around him like he was Black Jesus.
They did.
Quite entertaining to watch, I might add.
In our system, the way incompetent people get elected is by, number one, existing in the government structure long enough. If you say work in small local government or you're in a small local town long enough, I could probably get elected to my local county board. It would not be that difficult. Most of the people in this county know my face, if not know me personally, just because of my family's well-known ability to spread themselves throughout the county and never leave.
And I've seen pictures of you and your family at a wedding. If you've met one of the Emricsons, you've met them all, because they all look alike.
We do. We look phenomenally alike. Now, could I get elected to county board? Absolutely. Do I want to? Not really. No. I have other things that I'm working on. But if you manage to get elected to a small local position and you do a halfway passable job, Phil, have you ever heard of being promoted beyond your competency?
I've heard it phrased slightly different, and that's what I was going to sneak in when you ran out of gas. Was the
Go for it.
so within okay, bearing in mind that I went to school for business, and I
Mm-hmm.
understand it's kind of a frou-frou degree inside people's minds, but I spent a lot
Mm-hmm.
of time studying like organizational psychology and things of that nature. Like business is like half the numbers and half psychology.
Very much so.
And there's a theory in there called promoted to your level of incompetency. In other words, like if you're really good at an entry level job, then you get promoted. And if you're really good at that job, you get promoted again. And you keep getting promoted until you suck. But here's the thing. In organizations that are super competitive, have lots of competition, have lots of outside pressure on that organization to, I don't want to say encourage, but demand high efficiency. If
Yeah.
you suck at your job, you go back down the ladder. But that doesn't apply to large corporations. It doesn't apply to organizations that are of a sufficient size to absorb a poor performer here or there in the organization. It
And our
doesn't,
government is sizable.
yeah, only the federal workforce is like not including Congress, the executive branch, not including like the military. I think just civilian vets is like 1.4 million people, if I recall correctly.
Mm-hmm.
Which I hate to be the guy to point out the obvious thing in the room, but like there's 330 something million people in the country, and what I think only like 260, 270 million of them are of like working age,
Yeah.
like between 22 and 65. So like,
Mm-hmm.
or might even be less than that, but like, so 1.4 million is a hell of a lot of people.
It is a hell of a lot of
Now,
people.
to be fair, this is an enormous landmass. We have, and the government does a lot of things. I don't think they should do most of them, but that's
That's true.
regardless. They do a lot of things, and it does take a lot of people to do those things. So the problem is that you are promoted up to your level of incompetency, and then that is where you stay. Because
Mm-hmm.
culturally, in certain organizations and certain industries, it is culturally incompatible to have a poor performer stay in the organization at that level. You get moved back down. Or there's an extremely thorough vetting process to make sure you don't promote up in that position you're not going to be successful in. Again,
Yeah.
this is a cultural thing. It's
It
not
is.
it's not an HR policy, it's not a rule, it's a cultural thing. It's kind of like
But how do we evaluate promotions in our current government?
bigger problem. That whole thing
Mm-hmm.
about culturally, you make sure you pick the best person for the job, that completely obfuscates favoritism and nepotism, which happens rampantly in large organizations, including government.
Do y'all not remember Hillary Clinton? It's her turn to be president.
Yep.
DNC quite literally said it is Hillary's turn to be president, and then they sandbag Bernie. Now, I'm not a fan of Bernie. I hate communists. I think communists are inherently evil. If you're a communist, you're an evil person. Don't listen to me.
I actually
don't care.
felt really bad for Bernie Sanders because he
I
got
did too.
screwed over so hard up to the
Oh,
moment
yeah.
he shut up, kissed the ring, and bought another mansion. At that point, I was like, oh, fuck this
course.
guy.
Oh, yeah, he definitely did knuckle under for the book deal.
Oh, no,
Notice
no.
how the
He
second...
didn't knuckle
the
under. He put his
second-
hands on his knees and
Oh,
friggin'
yeah.
spread his cheeks for her.
You ever watch Bernie Sanders' net worth curve and his millionaires and billionaires speeches turning into just billionaire speeches because suddenly he's a multimillionaire.
Yeah, funny how that works.
Oh, darn. I guess the bourgeoisie I can't be that mad anymore.
Yeah, it's always interesting to listen to a multimillionaire spout off commie gibberish like he's part of the hardworking working class proletariat.
And then he has
Like,
the
you
gall to
moron.
say, well, you could have wrote a book too and had the DNC force itself to buy it.
Okay. Right. So, like I said, all those are criticisms of like what I think is our system of government. And before we move on to the next one, I think our system of government is probably about the best one there is. Like, of all of the piles of suck that are all the world's governments, I think this one's the least screwed up of the whole bunch, in spite of how much I bitch and yell about it.
I mean, look at the UK right now. They are trying to get through their parliamentary system that you, without trial, can be jailed for up to 2 years on a single magistrate's decision.
Dude, you can be
no more right to trial.
You can be jailed for non-violent Facebook posts because they offend people.
Correct. For memes.
There
have been people jailed for multiple years for memes.
I'm just going to say that, like, anyone that lives in a place that at one point was a colony of England, you should
Thank God you rebelled.
You should laugh at those bastards because they have fallen so far from the empire that the sun never set on to the cucks they are now. They deserve all the pain that they're going to experience.
Everybody with balls left England
and came over here.
Pretty much. I mean, look, that's largely what happened. All of the brave people in Europe died in World War I, World War II, or left during colonial times.
Well, but then there's the French that just said, you know, all of our ne'er-do-wells and prostitutes, let's ship them to Louisiana.
Look, ne'er-do-wells and prostitutes are a key cornerstone of an economy.
I mean, it worked out well for down here. Although I was telling somebody recently, like I was talking to you recently about how the Rabalais family has been in Louisiana since 1732, and we literally woke up one morning like, oh fuck, we're Americans. Like, and especially think about the time period. Okay, we're talking about the Louisiana Purchase. Louisiana is still the frontier at this point.
Very much so.
I don't think the Rabalais realized that Spain owned the land they were living on at the time, because it was only for a little period of time before the United States bought it. And I wonder how long these people were actually Americans before somebody clued them in, because this was a very backwoods part of Louisiana. I mean, they didn't speak...
I would be willing to bet the first time they were pulled before a magistrate for some kind of street brawl or bar fight, that's when they realized that they were in a different country.
I don't think there were bars there, dude. I mean, it was nothing but farms.
You'd be shocked at how many farms have bars.
That's fair. But you know what?
You know how many farms, how many barns I have been in that have a wet bar in the corner?
All the good ones.
All the best ones.
Yeah. Anyway... so yeah, with everything I've said to like deride my own form of government up one side down the next. And if I get more whiskey in me, there will be more bitching to occur, because like I have major gripes with what this country does in terms of political leadership and everything else. But I still think we're a hell of a lot freaking better off than most of the other forms of government. Like,
look, democracy, it's I forget who said it. Democracy is the worst form of government except for all the others.
Okay, since you queued it up, let's talk about direct democracy. Is there anywhere in the world that uses direct democracy as a form of government? And
not that I'm
not talking about the country that like the Democrats think the United States is, because we don't have a democracy, we have a republic.
True.
But like you hear these two terms conflated all the time, like republic and democracy, and that the United States is democracy. And I can't think of any nation on earth now or ever that has had direct democracy, where literally everyone votes. It's a 1-to-1 vote, and everything is just done that way. I can't think of any nation that's done that. But I can tell you how it would end.
I'm fairly certain Athens, at least if you were not a slave, was technically a direct democracy.
I would have to dig in. I wasn't alive back then.
My brain wants to say yes, but it didn't work out great for them if memory serves.
Yeah, but let's think about this for ever so brief of a moment.
Mm-hmm.
What is our greatest gripe about communism? Other than people starving.
The inherent disincentive to production or productive enterprise.
Okay, maybe I should have started from another angle. So my greatest gripe with direct democracy... tyranny is always going to be most forms of government are a tyranny of the minority. The people in power reign over everyone else.
Sure.
Direct democracy is the opposite. It's tyranny of the majority.
Where the majority of people are idiots.
Where if 50.1% of the populace says we get to take shit from the other 49.9%, that shit's legal.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you can argue to the day, till the day is long about how oligarchy and all this other bullcrap, but like that is how direct democracies work. And since no one can point at one in recent history to tell me, no, it worked out great here, I'm going to stand on my point that if we have a direct democracy, that's what it's ultimately going to devolve into is the majority ruling over the minority. And let's take any one particular issue and just dissect it that way. Like, Nick, what do you think if you had to put percentages on it? What portion, if we put the Second Amendment on the ballot, direct democracy, everybody votes, 330 million or 270 million voters. Do you think 50.1% of people would vote to keep guns and the other 49.9 would say no, and then that's it? The yeas carry the day? Or do you think it'd go the other direction?
I think that the vast majority of people voting on it wouldn't actually know what they were voting for to begin with.
But they would still vote.
They would still vote, yeah. And they would vote based on whatever sign was the most catchy and stuck in their head the most. We see this really interesting thing with, say, tax levies. I had an interesting conversation with one of my coworkers several years ago.
Jeff just said it's a government by the people, for the people, but the people are retarded.
Why do you think they're not actually fixing the school problem? But he was saying to me, he's like, well, the money's for the fire department. It was to basically double the size of the fire department's budget, which they were spending wildly inefficiently, according to the fire chief. But he was not allowed to reallocate the funds in a more constructive manner because it was set by the city council.
Funny how that works out.
So the city council decided, no, we just need to double the amount of money for the fire department. And then that'll solve the budget issue. Instead of just spending the money appropriately, as the people in the fire department said it should be spent.
But that doesn't double the revenue, which was the goal.
No, essentially what they did was they doubled the taxes for the fire department. They then took some of that money that was supposed to go to the fire department and then diverted it into city tourism.
As you do.
The fire department didn't really see much of a budget increase because a lot of that other money disappeared into a few other different places. So the taxes went up. The fire department's budget is still in the shitter, and they haven't fixed the inefficiencies either.
That's because fixing the inefficiencies wasn't the goal. The goal was to create a slush fund for pet projects.
Yes, it was. But he voted yes because it's for the fire department, and the fire department is important. Which I agree with. But the money never went to the fire department.
And bigger and shit.
The fire department didn't want it.
And bigger and shit, if we had direct democracy, everybody be throwing their votes for the children.
I mean, look at how the ballot was structured in Virginia regarding their redistricting. Are you in favor of fair voting distribution? I believe was the phrasing.
Never a more loaded catchphrase to use, huh?
Yeah, I'd like to see the person that formatted that sentence jailed for fraud, for voter fraud.
But
they're defrauding the voters. One of the two. Won't happen.
No, never. Anyway, so the Republic falls apart when people make it do things it was never supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what we're watching is we're watching the Republic really.
It's been doing that for a very long time.
Really, really on the struggle bus. Direct democracy is destined to fail because you're just letting 50.1% of people tell their 49.9% how to live their lives. And that's going to end in a civil war almost immediately.
Well, yeah. And to be realistic, look, there's, we were talking about this in the Signal chat. No one can be an expert in everything. So there is some benefit to theoretically electing people that's whole job will be to become an expert in policy.
Representative democracy.
But that's the idea. Mm-hmm. And then they represent the constituents' best interests through their expertise in the policy or through discussing it with experts in the policies. They don't do that. In fact, they don't do any of those things. They just vote on things according to the special interest groups.
Of course.
Pay them. But
so with those two in the bag, Do we do socialism, communism together? Because I've never found enough of a difference between the two to like separate them. Possibly that could be because socialism inevitably gives way to communism eventually, but you know, they kind of seem to go hand in hand.
Well, I think that the problem is the purpose of socialism is to inevitably get to communism. You slowly introduce more and more and more and more state programs until eventually the state is controlling everything.
Mm-hmm.
The issue with that is you have the same problem as massive corporations. Top-down control is very inefficient for complex systems. It's very bad at dealing with highly complex systems. Now, if your purpose is I make 2x4s, top-down control works pretty well for I make 2x4s. If it's I monitor all of the economy so that we can maximize the number of 2x4s, great. You've maximized the amount of 2x4s. There's no longer grain or carrots or gasoline. You've collapsed the entire system to maximize 2x4s. I don't know. Top-down control of complex systems never really seems to work very well. The issue with communism and socialism to an extent has always been to me the disincentive towards self-interest.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe I'm phrasing that poorly. I have had a lot of gin.
I don't think it's no, it's not. It's not.
It disincentivizes you to be productive.
Yes.
Because you no longer are gaining the benefits of your productive enterprise.
Yes. The minute you remove personal ownership and property and individual property, you remove all incentive for a person to strive to do better. Like communism, my biggest gripe about communism is that philosophically you basically try to convert everyone into a cog in this grand machine that the state, the governing body controls and designs and puts everybody where they need to be. So like, you're a really smart guy, you're going to be a doctor, and you're a really hard worker, you're going to be a farmer. And then everyone just like cogs in a machine. I can put them in wherever I want.
In reality, it's no, your dad bribed your way into medical school. You are now a doctor, whether or not you're good at it.
Yeah. Leeches and cocaine will carry the day,
and we killed all the farmers because they owned the land. So now all you people that worked the farms that don't understand how to manage the farms, you're now farmers.
Or we can do it like Mao did in China, where they just killed all the
sparrows.
Well, killed all the educated people.
Killed everyone with glasses.
Yes,
because another good one, Khmer Rouge.
Yeah.
Turns out eyesight kind of useful.
Yeah. So like I said, I mean, my gripes with communism are like it is destined to explode from the word go. You cannot.
So is democracy.
You cannot. Yeah, direct democracy. But like
it just takes a little longer with direct democracy or representative democracies.
Yeah, and the thing of it is that I think representative democracy could work. I think the problem with don't beat me to the punchline. I'm gonna make a note and we'll talk about it at the end.
Go for it. Jeff, electing an expert, aka nobility with extra steps. Yeah, but at least you're not dealing with say what happened with what was the what was the name of that noble family? Habsburgs. You're not dealing with the Habsburgs keeping it all in the bloodline and slowly getting more and more crazy, retarded, and genetically inbred. And I mean retarded in the medical term.
Dude, you can look at pictures of the Habsburgs over the generations and like
it's wild.
Those chins get really, really weak, really, really quick.
And they are probably the more flattering version of how they look, given that they were hand painted. And if you're painting the king, you're probably not going to paint him looking like an idiot or ugly.
One would think.
Yeah.
Okay. And what else? Communism, socialism, direct democracy, representative. I mean, we could chuck fascism in here, but my criticism of fascism is very similar to my criticism of monarchy, which have a lot of similarities.
Well, fascism and communism are really they're two wings of the same bird.
Well, I meant
Um,
fascism and monarchy. You're still talking
well,
about centralized power, top down control
sure,
of not just the people, but also of industry.
yeah,
So it's not
you can,
it's
and
not
that's
com
fascism is really closer to communism than
yeah,
it is to monarchy, in my opinion.
depends on your
Because
perspective.
communism requires fascism in order for communism to work
Yeah.
the way Marx
But
describes it.
with communism, the state owns the industry. With fascism, the state controls the industry. It seems like a kind of a small thing, but like think about like during World War II, like Porsche and Volkswagen and all those companies, they weren't owned by the state, but they were told by the state, "Thou shalt produce what we want you to produce."
Hmm.
Like,
Well,
seems like a kind of a perfunct. It seems like I'm splitting hairs, but I mean it is a narrow difference.
so what it wasn't just that you shall produce this, it was you will only get materials if you produce this.
Yes,
That was a lot of it. And like, what was it Ralph Lauren that created the all the uniforms?
I think the SS uniforms, if I remember right.
Yeah, I mean, bang up job. It's a really great looking uniform. Could you have done it for somebody else so we could still use that color palette?
Yeah, that thing.
I mean, it's no offense, great looking uniform. Fashion designer did do a hell of a job. He just did a hell of a job for the worst possible government at the time, except for maybe the communists who killed just as many, if not more people.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, like my criticism of fascism is that a lot of the same criticism I have of communism, socialism. The minute you have top down control of all the industries, you're removing all the incentive for people to work harder, to be more efficient. You're removing all the incentive for these companies to experiment, color outside the lines, to try to innovate. You are willfully suppressing human nature.
Mm-hmm.
And every time government does that, it ends poorly.
It does, yeah.
Which is also the reason why I tend to think, well, one of the reasons I think monarchy ends poorly, but like
Monarchy has a place in a time and technology level and a
mm,
societal sophistication level.
I disagree, but go ahead.
So, Phil, you're familiar with the zone of control theory of historical governance?
Mm-hmm.
Essentially, for the people that aren't familiar with it, as far as you can communicate within a certain time frame, kind of set the size of your countries for a very long time, barring geographical hardlines, mountain ranges, rivers, coastlines, impassable areas like deserts, stuff like that. So, for instance, Chicago. Let's take Chicago for example. How far can a man on a horse travel in one day? There's a number for that, reliable. For a while there, technologically speaking, until people developed the team messenger rides and stuff like that, you could really only control an area about the size of a radius of the distance a man could ride on a horse reliably within a day or within a couple of days. The further you got out from that, the harder it got to control because you really couldn't exercise your will there. Oh, thank you, Reg. It was Hugo Boss. My apologies to Ralph Lauren. Hugo Boss is on the Nazi uniforms. Excellently done. Why couldn't you have done it for somebody cool?
Mm-hmm.
But the reason why monarchy works in that time period, and especially hereditary monarchy and like the feudal dynasty system where you have layers of control built down below, is you have, say, your individual knight who runs, or how, whatever the title is, he runs his small little geographic area, and everybody in that area knows that guy. They come to that guy for his decisions. He's responsible for keeping the peace and defending that limited area. So you got a whole bunch of those guys, and they all agree to follow the other guy. I mean, it's sort of trickle down communications of authority.
Mm-hmm.
You once you get to a time period or a technology level where like telegraphs or relay communications, feudalism and monarchy, Jeff, they're largely interchangeable.
The Venn diagram has a lot of overlap.
It does. You can have feudalism without monarchy, but well, no, I don't think you can. You have to have monarchy to have feudalism. or you have to have, yeah, one of the two. But
Whose idea was it to
essentially, once
drink
you
while
get
having this discussion?
yours and mine, it's fine.
Yeah.
It was a long day at work. Um, Without the technology for communications at distance, such as like the printing press and things like that, the ability to control countries was very finite. And you could expand that through your vassals controlling other areas in that.
I was going to say there is a kind of a parallel here with the size of military units and the size of a war front. You can see
Yep.
throughout the centuries the size of a military unit continued to expand as the communications became more and more sophisticated to be able to control a large group of people spread out across a longer distance.
Exactly. For a long period of time, you could really only control a battlefront about as far as you could shout.
Yeah. And then it was flags,
Mm-hmm.
horns, radios,
Smoke signals. So there's all kinds of things like that.
And now we're using, smartphones and ATAC and stuff. And
exactly. So now you can control battlefronts that encompass continents
from across the world.
Yeah. Which, okay, so I would say that monarchy has a use in a certain technology level society. Feudalism has a use in a certain technology level society because you can't have, in my opinion, you're not going to have a large scale representative democracy. You might be able to make it work if you did it in a feudal-ish sense where you have, say, your feudal fiefdoms instead are electing representatives who are then going to another place. That's why you kind of see that transition period in the Renaissance era to where you have representative councils for the monarch. A lot of those were elected.
Mm-hmm. So I think monarchies only work in two limited circumstances. And I'm going to draw a comparison to a family unit. Like within this castle, I am the king, Mrs. Rabelais is the queen, and our daughter is the princess.
Mm-hmm.
The king and the queen have all the stuff, make all the rules. We kind of lay down the law. Like we are willing to hear the opinion of our progeny, but at the end of the day, we still make the decision. Mm-hmm. I think monarchies only work in two narrow facets. First of all, is that the populace has to believe, rightly or wrongly, that the monarch is acting in their best interest, not their own self-interest, but in the best interest of the people.
Sure.
Because if the people believe that, they're very willing to cede to their authority and to work for them and do all the things they're supposed to do and not, fight against the law of the land and so on and so forth. But they have to believe, rightly or wrongly, that the monarch is acting in their best interest. And the other thing that has to happen is they have to have faith in the strength of that monarch to protect them.
Yeah.
And when those two things fall apart, like what you tend to get with nepotism and with what's the word I'm looking for here? It's a monarchy that transitions from father to son, father to son. There's a term for it, Nick. You said it.
Heritable?
No, not terrible.
Hereditary?
Hereditary monarchy.
Yeah.
The problem you get is that sooner or later, usually within 2 generations, one of the sons is born that's got like a gap in his teeth and he's kind of hunchbacked and like no one respects him. No one believes that he's competent.
Every family has the idiot. Sometimes the idiot's the only male heir.
Well, the Habsburgs, case in point.
Or they just constantly marry their sisters and second cousins.
Yes. So once you get to that point, there becomes an immediate sense of unrest. Now, normally you can like enlist a strong man to kind of tamp down the resistance for a while, but sooner or later that whole thing comes apart, and it comes apart exactly like a family comes apart if the mother and father are not keeping the bills paid and the lights on, if there's not food in the fridge, if the children start to believe that mom and dad are just being jerks for no reason, like they're not looking out for my best interest, they're all about themselves. Sooner or later, those children start to get ideas in their head about how this is not working. These people are not looking out for my best interest. They're not able to protect me. They're not able to provide, and they lose the legitimacy of their office. And that is exactly the same time that both parental units and monarchs break down.
It's also the point where our government is starting to break down, in my opinion, too, because the especially with the Epstein scandal as much as people like to meme on that, and as much as people are rightly very upset about that, it is taking away the vague legitimacy that the government is supposed to have.
But with one difference, though. In a monarchy,
Mhm.
you don't get to vote for your king.
True.
Technically.
Well, some monarchies you did.
Technically, we are supposed to be able to vote for our representatives, even though I believe, and I suspect you believe, that that system is heavily rigged.
Yeah, I'm not certain
Are you?
that a vote is even relevant anymore.
I mean, it's perfectly relevant to give people the illusion of choice.
I think on a local level, your vote definitely matters, and
Oh,
that's how
hell
they
yeah.
give you the illusion of choice.
Well,
that's how they have faked the legitimacy of the system since about the 1930s.
yeah. So back to that point that I was going to make towards the end of the show. Representative democracy only works with limited federal government and lots of local power. And now here's the reason I always say that, because it's not the first time I made this charge.
No.
The reason why, if you are the mayor of a town, you don't want to do anything wildly unpopular is because you live in that town, right? You're going to go grocery shop in that town. You're going to get your
You're
hair.
probably going to suffer the consequences of your actions.
You are going to have to face down angry voters literally fucking everywhere. You're going to face them down leaving church. You're going to face them down going to buy groceries. You're going to face them down constantly. You are going to be subject to the bitching and the screaming of your constituents constantly, because they don't have to book a plane ticket halfway across the country to go and scream at your office. They can literally drive 5 minutes across town and yell at you if they want to. And better than that,
it doesn't even have to be your elected official decisions that cause that either.
Yeah, it doesn't, but that's my point. That's why I've
We
always
had a mayor that got voted out of office because he would routinely poorly tip service staff.
But here's my thing. When I believe that the local, and not only that, but like the statistics make it pretty plain that like local politics are decided by very few votes.
Oh yeah. So
if you're going to run for
hundreds,
if you're going to run for office, you have like a grassroots door-to-door campaign at the federal level is laughable.
Yes.
But at the local level, it's actually pretty plausible in most places. Like, you can go around, shake some babies and kiss some hands, and you might actually get elected if you just get a little bit of name recognition.
If memory serves, the last time my county board had an election, for the 2 seats that were open, there was a combined total of 4,000 votes cast. One town in my county is 30,000 people. 4,000 votes were cast. You can visit and talk to 4,000 people during a campaign season.
Yep.
Very, very easily.
Look, I'm going to tell you that the last person we voted for school board, he didn't win, unfortunately, but he was a local pastor, and he was literally parking his car at the end of streets and then walking the streets, knocking on doors, talking to people. Spent 10 minutes out in the front yard with me and Gillian talking about the things we were concerned about, the things that mattered to us. And I told Gillian, I'm like, I will vote for him 100% because he gave me 10 minutes of his time. And that is something that no one else on that ballot did.
Yep.
And that matters to people. I mean, he didn't win, but it wasn't like an enormous chasm between him and, I think he came in third, and it wasn't by much.
Yeah, normally a city council or a school board vote or something like that is decided by sub 50 votes.
Yeah.
A lot of the time.
Yeah, but this guy came out of relative anonymity, no name recognition. I don't think he's ever run before, and he was pretty high up the ballot for his first go.
He'll probably run again. My guess is he would then get elected just because of the added name recognition.
I would hope so. But like I said, like that's kind of my thing. I think when you take the power away from the federal government, and by the power, I also mean the money. You disband the bureaucracies. You slim down the things they do. You push all of that further down to the states and to the local governments. I would rather see welfare programs run at the state level, not at the federal level, not with this huge sweeping bureaucracy, but at the state level, because the closer to the voters you push that activity, the more oversight there is. the more liable those people are to think twice about doing something wildly unpopular, because the people in their community they have to live with. There are no
Mm-hmm.
like gated communities where just the politicians live. I understand most
Right.
of them do live in gated communities, but
They do.
my point is that sooner or later you're going to bump into the same people you're voting for, and your face is known.
Your face, your name, probably your address.
I think if we do that, if we rip these bureaucracies apart and scatter them in all the states, or scatter them into localities where things are done in smaller pockets, it does two things. I think it makes the government more accountable to the people by virtue of proximity. But the other thing I think it would accomplish, and this is fun, I think it turns every single little pocket into its own tide pool for bad ideas. So that if, like, the reason why I continue to say over and over and over, like, the only part of California gun control that scares the crap out of me is that sooner or later those ideas propagate to the federal level, and then they try to sweep across the whole board. But if we locked that power down in the state and said, no, federal government cannot touch gun rights, period, end discussion. It has to be done at the state level, period, end discussion. We turn California into its own tide pool. And then you can do whatever you want in California with regards to gun rights, even though I think it's stupid and illogical. You do whatever you want. And then we're going to sit back and watch what happens. And we're going to compare that to another state that has much more lax gun laws. And we're going to see what happens over there. It turns every one of these areas into its own testing ground for ideas. And we can compare and contrast to the other 49 states and the other 49 versions of how this thing should be run. And we're going to know really quickly. Do you want to know why I'm watching New York with such rapt attention right now? Because I am just waiting to see how fast New York City turns into the fucking third world. Because I can see, because I have a history book on my shelf, that is a complete and total just cock up waiting to happen. It was destined for chaos from the word go. It was never going to work.
No.
But I am happy to watch New York City try it way, way far away from me, and y'all let me know how it works out. And I hope it hurts as bad as I hope it does, because I want the voters to remember how bad it sucks.
It's not going to change their voting pattern.
It's not going to change the voting pattern, but you know what it's going to do? It might change the voting pattern of every city around New York City, because they're going to look on the other side of the border and directly compare. Like, okay, we're all in the same state. We all have the same governor. We all have lots in common politically. But over there, they have crazy, crazy socialist guy. And over here, we have a less crazy socialist guy. And things over here are a lot better than over there. So maybe we don't do what those people are doing. We do what we're doing over here because it works better. And that plays out over and over and over. What is the reason I keep telling you I love you and Rachel? I would never move to Illinois ever for any reason.
Yep.
Your state's laws drive me
horrible.
Fucking crazy.
And it's only getting worse.
Why would I
look at what Pritzker's doing to try and keep the Bears here? Oh, he's making the entire state pay for it with their homeowners taxes.
Why do you think I recently wrote off Virginia as a potential state to move to in a few years? That state has gone friggin' crazy. I don't want anything to do with the state laws there. It's
DC overflow voters.
But when every state is allowed to do things their own way, and we take those decisions away from the federal government, we push them down to the state, it now means that people can relocate much more reasonable distances to go to the place that more closely aligns with their ideals. If I don't like something the federal government does, I have two options. One is to be a felon, and one is to leave the country of my birth.
Yep.
Whereas if I don't like something Louisiana does, I could literally move 30 miles. I wouldn't even have to change. I wouldn't even have to change jobs. My commute would be shorter.
That's true.
But I could move 30 miles into Mississippi. And bing, bang, boom. I'm in a totally different state, totally different set of laws.
Yep.
Raggle. The problem with that plan is that so many of the big cities are pushing anti-American sentiment, and when it fails, they leave for other states.
They do.
They do.
At least the people that are most economically mobile leave.
Yeah.
Look at Detroit. Detroit's a perfect example.
I do have to say that has been one of the interesting parts of COVID, is that with the rise of remote work, you've seen more and more left-leaning people evacuating the cities that their own votes demolished. And they're moving to the suburbs where the rest of us are like,
and they're voting exactly the same.
And the rest of us that were already here are like, that's bullshit. Knock that off.
I mean, look at the housing prices in the collar areas around large metropolitan areas where it sucks to live and it's way too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, hell, there was a very interesting phenomenon when the remote work started out by me. You were seeing about 6 months after I bought my house, you saw the price of houses almost double in my area. Almost doubled. And do you know where all that money came from? People were selling their flats and their townhomes and stuff in Cook County, in the city, moving out here because they only had to commute by train once a month. We're on the train line right to Chicago. But they were bidding cash offers $100,000, $150,000 over asking price on houses to guarantee they got that house because they were going to sell a house that was already 4 times that. They were walking away with cash after the fact. Interesting.
And what happened when remote work stopped?
Funny about that. They still own those houses.
I do have to admit,
they don't live in them anymore.
I do have to admit, as a slight sidebar, this has been one of the reasons why I've sat back kind of mirthfully and looked at the interwebs and the places where federal employees mostly congregate. Mm-hmm. Because I have to admit, Orange Man done some okay things, done some stupid things, as every president does.
True.
But forcing all the federal employees to abandon remote work and telework and come back to the office 100% has been pretty universally met with derision amongst the federal workplace, considering that
because a lot of them weren't doing their job to begin with,
and a lot of them were literally 100% remote working, or at least 80% remote working, like 4 days a week. But my point is that the thing I saw that makes me cock my head, it's not the ones that are like, damn it, I got to go back to the office. I understand that's frustrating. Pull your pants up and get over it. It's the ones that are like, well, 4 years ago, I moved like 100 miles away, and now I'm going to lose my job or this, that, and the other. I can't remote work anymore. And it's like, if before the pandemic, in air quotes, you were going in the office 5 days a week, and then because of, big scary things, we all started working from home. What made you believe that selling your house and moving 100 miles further away was a long-term decision to make, when it seemed like sooner or later we were probably going to have to go back to the office because the pandemic was going to end eventually?
Most people don't think or plan long-term.
Most people are fucking dumb, Nick.
Yeah. I mean, well, look, hey,
what do you mean? Yeah, I mean,
look at this. Look at the results of any standardized tests on the Chicago school district. Single-digit percentages of graduating students can read. It varies depending on who you talk to, but it's not even half. It's not even a quarter are considered literate. Good job. These are the people that are voting and working with you, because it's not just people in Chicago.
I need a co-host that doesn't like kick me in the nuts at the end of an episode.
You're welcome, bud. I'm here to disappoint.
I wouldn't say disappointed, more frustrated, because you're not wrong. But
I wish I was.
Yeah.
I wish I was.
So, is there any form of government we missed? We started with our own. We went to direct democracy, which is just tyranny of the majority. We went to communism, socialism, which is tyranny of the minority. And then fascism, which is kind of like socialism, where it's tyranny of the minority. Oligarchy. We totally missed that one.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of
anarchy, the absence of government. The whole reason we started this episode. I know. Just stick with me on this. So oligarchy is going to end up just like all the other forms of tyranny, because a small group of people gets all the power and they wield it for themselves, and that ends poorly.
Yeah.
But
well,
But what
Yeah.
started this episode in the first place was a discussion about anarchy. And I have really upset my anarchist friends in the past, and I'm going to upset them again. So, anarchy, I argue, I think successfully, is literally impossible in a group of 3 people or more.
Correct.
Because
I would argue even with 2 people, it's impossible.
I mean,
you're going to have somebody that is the more dominant personality that is going to take charge and make more decisions than the non-dominant
strongman dictatorship, in other words.
Yeah, and it only takes 5 minutes in a room full of people to figure out who's the person that's making the decision.
But yeah, that is where I always like kick my anarchist friends in the nuts. Is I'm like, because they're always like, yeah, man, we shouldn't have government, and I'm like, yeah, it's not possible. I'm like,
it's not possible. The idea is to have the absolute minimum amount of government possible to maintain a functional society.
Well, but it's human nature to form a government, and I can prove it is by the fact that every society has formed a government. But I argue it's not even society, it's not even people. It's freaking complex mammals.
Yes. Even non-mammalian complex creatures do it.
But yeah, Phil, let's think about this. A pride of lions, because I wouldn't say tigers. Tigers are much more solitary, but even they basically self-segregate according to like, this is my territory, that's your territory, you stay out of it. But the only way that those lines get upheld is because of constant like border checking.
Violence.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like, but a pride of lions, you have one that's in charge, and then he kind of like rules the roost. And even then, the females are really the ones that are in charge because they have all the breeding rights. And if you think you're gonna forcibly breed with an angry lioness, bud, you need to watch some National Geographic.
Probably.
I mean, you are not gonna like how that ends. You're gonna get bitten places you wish you didn't.
Yeah,
works that way for angry human females as well. Anyway, different discussion. But so like lions, schools of fish, freaking schools of dolphins, any animal that has large groups of communal living.
There ends up being some kind of hierarchy system, yeah.
And what is a hierarchy?
It's a primitive form of government.
So my argument to the anarchists that always say like, well, we just shouldn't have any government, is I'm like, well, in a vacuum, as a theoretical exercise, that falls on its face, because even a bunch of monkeys will make a form of government if you leave them alone.
Yeah. There's usually a dominant creature, whatever one it happens to be, by whatever criteria you judge. There's usually one that's in charge.
And everything else either cooperates or gets removed as an obstacle.
Yes.
Yeah. So, that's the long and short of it to me. I blame Nick for this episode entirely, because
that's fine.
It started off with just an argument about government, and somehow we got here.
Here was fun.
I don't know when we're going to do it. I was thinking the other day about doing like an Ask Me Anything, but we would have to get lots of listener participation. Otherwise, that would just end up with the two of us being drunken morons for an hour.
Well, we've done that before.
Well, I know, but a drunken moron with a topic, that works. And a drunken moron just sitting around waiting for people to ask them questions is not entertaining. And I try to be entertaining.
We could start crowdsourcing it, and then when we felt we had enough questions, do the thing.
We might have to do it that way, but I'm not in favor of that, just because
I get it.
If we know the questions in advance, it's not as much like, it's not off the cuff, and that's really what I'm after.
You could have your wife collate the questions.
No. I think I might have just figured it out. It is.
Do we do it at summer camp?
Wait. No, we don't. Today, right now, is May the 7th.
Okay.
The 20th anniversary of this show is coming up in the
20th.
20th?
You mean 10th?
10th? Yes, 10th. Whoops. 10th anniversary. I don't know exactly when, but it's August the something.
August the something.
I will. I mean, I've got the records. I've been basting my brain in freaking whiskey for an hour. I can't recall that out of nowhere. But we should.
August the something.
But we should do that. We should plan it out in advance. Let everybody know the 10th anniversary of the show. It's an Ask Me Anything. We do it live, and it'll be in August, which will be after summer camp.
Absolutely berate Andrew into getting on.
Well, that was the other thing, and thank you for reminding me. So I talked to Andrew literally yesterday.
Oh, good.
First of all, he's doing well.
Love to hear that.
And he mentioned he needed to check his schedule at work because he's gonna start like putting kind of pins on the calendar as far as what days he can come back to the show.
Nice.
Without putting all his business out on the street, like he's
a busy boy.
Well, and when right about the time, it was about a few months before we brought you onto the show, his work schedule went to 11. And when that happened, like that normal time block we had, nice consistent, where we would get on every week and do the show like you and I do, that went away. So then we started having to like flex the day around a bunch. And that was also right about the time we started doing live streaming. And it's really hard to build a live audience if no one ever knows when to show up to it.
Truth.
And it just got harder and harder and harder to work our schedules together. And that was when we brought you, Nick, on. And that was fun and awesome. But Andrew said he wants to come back to the show. And like I told him last time, I'm like, I literally have like admin credentials for all three of us.
Absolutely.
So he can come back literally whenever he wants. But he might owe us booze and cigars.
Yes. Bribery is effective.
The toll must be paid.
It's true.
All right. Anything you want to slip in here before we go out the door? Government sucks. Our form of government sucks less than everybody else's, but not by much. I think if we have to do it again.
You mean do government again?
Well, I think if we have to do this form of government again. I was about to say something very spicy. We need to beat people with wet noodles anytime they try to expand the federal government.
Yeah, well, we could.
Yeah.
Constitutional amendment about clumsy bludgeonings for anyone that tries to expand the duties of government.
I mean, we have constitutional amendments saying that the government can't fuck around with everybody's gun rights, and that doesn't seem to have worked very well. So,
I mean, it didn't work very well for the Indians or the blacks or the Irish for a minute there.
Didn't work well for the Japanese when they were all shuffled off to
the Japanese
internment camps.
Didn't work well for some Germans too. Well, fuck.
Yeah.
I love watching the my state DA argue that Native American rules back from colonial times about selling guns to Native Americans and slaves is a basis for restricting gun rights today from citizens. Hooray, the DNC arguing racism.
Yeah, and I argue that the rooftop Koreans gave us the most perfect example of why everyone needs to have guns.
Damn right.
Because a bunch of you and a bunch of your neighbors smoking people off of rooftops with...
They didn't even shoot anybody. They just threatened to shoot people.
Well, there's always next time.
There's always next time.
All right, let's pack it up, go out the door. Matter of Facts Podcast is heading out. Happy Mother's Day to all you ladies, and we'll talk to y'all another week. Bye, everybody.
Good night.